put a bow on this discussion. I think this ties in. There's been a lot of chatter about, how do you juggle Mbappe, Haaland, if you get Haaland along with Mbappe? How do you juggle that with Vinicius? Who gets benched? Do you play all four? And if you play all four, well, that's just crazy talk. I mean, you would have to probably play a 4-2-3-1, Benzema in the hole at the 10 slot. You have to go crazy, control the ball, counter pressing, making sure your best form of defense, because you're just not defending. Otherwise, you're definitely going to need a left back like Mendy to balance out a scheme like that. Uh, for I guess as an interesting case study, PSG with Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar hasn't worked out maybe the way we thought it would. And if you saw it coming, well, congratulations, you are super smart. I to me, like, 10 times out of 10, if you have the chance to have Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar in a team, you say yes and you do it and you try to make it work. What has been apparent is that it's hard to compensate from a tactical balance perspective when your front three don't defend. And I think if you have Vinicius starting in that front three over Neymar, or you have Benzema and Vinicius, you can get away with that a little bit, because Benzema is a really good presser. Vinicius and Benzema both work really hard. Vinicius can still defend. I mean, that's one of the things we had a whole like hour of Vinicius swooning at the beginning of the podcast. I don't think we actually mentioned the fact that um, along with the fact that he was amazing getting into goal scoring positions, he's also tremendous defensively, and he was working hard deep to help cover defensively as well. I think he would have to swallow the defensive pill out of that front three if you were to play them all together. But throwing Haaland to this discussion is, again, 10 times out of 10, I think you say yes to signing Haaland and Mbappe. I would, especially given the fact you'd probably prevent him from going to Barca, and Benzema is getting a little bit older, and eventually you need that transition, and you won't be able to sign Haaland like 2 years from now if he's playing at Barcelona, for example. So I say yes, if it's possible, you pull it off. But then comes like almost like the tactical discussion about it. How much does and we can start with you, Matt, maybe. How much does those four in the same team together worry you, especially after seeing how kind of PSG has functioned? And even going back to past presidents, we had a different version of this, a quartet of Raul Gonzalez, Ronaldo Nazario, Luis Figo, Zinedine Zidane, all in the same team together. A little bit different maybe because Zidane plays a little bit deeper, but he's not doing much defensively for you. Figo was a little bit underrated defensively, I think, because he actually did a lot to help Salgado. But again, he's not going to be someone you rely on. And again, that team was incredibly imbalanced. It may not be as imbalanced as this one, or this one may not be as imbalanced as that one, because our midfield is better now. And again, especially once Makalele left, it was game over. We had no balance. But using some past precedents as an example, how much of that would you be concerned about, Matt, or do you think it's just are you less worried about something like that from a balance perspective?
Yeah, so let me preface this by saying, obviously, I would be ecstatic if Real Madrid were able to sign both Mbappe and Haaland, and I'd just be really excited to see how that would play out. But I just don't. I just can't. I don't know. I can't see it. And one, the tactical level that you just talked about, I don't think the balance would be there. I don't see how you fit Benzema, Haaland, Vinicius, and Mbappe. Like I don't see how you fit all four and have a cohesive team that doesn't end up like you've seen PSG, and even them. It's the three. And as much as Vinicius plays solid defense, and as much as Benzema does a great job, like coming back and pressuring the defensive midfielder, I just struggle to really see it. And then the other part of this that I don't think enough people are talking about is who takes the penalty kicks, who takes the free kicks, who's the man, because Mbappe and Haaland both want to be the man, and I think maybe if Haaland and let's say they do both sign, I think it's a short term thing for one of the two, and I think Mbappe probably comes out as the man, and Haaland, he takes this ride, he does this adventure, he has a tandem with Mbappe for maybe 2 or 3 years. They win trophies or they don't, but he eventually leaves, because we've seen it time and time again. It's happening with Mbappe right now. It happened with Neymar. Like, these guys don't want to play second fiddle, and it's very, very hard to have two of these guys in the team and one of them not be the man. Like, they're not going to want to alternate penalty kicks. I'm sorry if somebody brings that up as a response. It's not. They're not. They want to score as many goals as possible. That's just what's in their head. And any chance they can get, they want to. They want to be scoring those goals. So I just really struggle to see how it all works.
Haaland is on the record saying he sees Mbappe as a rival too, and like if I'm remembering correctly, he just like said it unprompted as well, which is like really
Yeah,
funny.
well, and all those PSG guys made fun of Holland's celebration when they played against each other, and Mbappe was a part of that. Like, I just don't think there's a friendliness there.
Yeah, I don't think there is. Like, I would if I was to take if that was the only thing I had to worry about, I would be like, you know what, like fuck it, like let's deal with that. Ancelotti, elite man manager, like he'll find a way to work it out. I do think it's like an incredibly difficult tactical question, and what I will say is because these are the names we're talking about. I think you really need to like sit down, and when I say you, I'm talking about Real Madrid, and really think about why you can't do this. Like, I think you need to be 100% certain that it just doesn't make sense before you say no. It's one of those that's just worth, like really trying to think outside the box for how to make this work. And so I still need some time. Like, I've mostly been ignoring the rumors, and like I need to like sit down and really think about every way, just for me to see how I think it can work before I give a hard no. But on the face of it, and from what I know from all these players, it does not seem possible to create like a functioning team in the way we envision with these four players. Like, it's just Benzema is like the ideal guy to play on, you know, in between any combination of those three, right? He's the one that makes it work because you have three players who are elite running off the last line, who are elite, scoring wise, who, will take up interior positions. Like, they do all that stuff, and Benzema is the one who feeds them. He's the one who play makes. He's the one who adds like an equilibrium to all of that. You put Vinicius, Haaland, and Mbappe together, who's going to be the one linking play? Like, none of them is really going to do it at the level we require. So then you think, okay, we play Benzema behind them, and then you start asking real questions about defensive stability. And I talked about this before when we were thinking about like literally giving up everything to go and sign Mbappe. Modern teams, like elite teams who have reached like the highest of highest levels, right? Like 100-point seasons, it's not necessary to have every single like top three player on your team to make it happen. Like, football is more than that. And, Mbappe and Benzema, Vinicius is more than enough. And another thing I'll say is like, I don't think signing players to take players away from rivals like makes really any sense. Like, Barca are going to get good players. It's just how it works. Whether they can afford it or not, that's just how it's going to be. You can control your own destiny and build the team you want to be able to be the best you can be, right? I will say though, like, it does need more thought. I mean, I don't know how much thought you guys have put into it. Maybe you've arrived at your conclusions, but I would really sit back and like try to consider every angle possible to make it work, because Haaland and Mbappe are going to be the two best players in the world if they're not already. But with Vinicius, like, it's really tough, man. And at the moment, I don't see how it works. I'd be welcome to hear, if you guys have any ideas, anyone further down the line has ideas to really create a functioning team on all levels, but it just seems incredibly difficult. And ultimately, if it turns out we can't create the balance we want, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I just want to start by saying I think you make the signing irrespective of the balance, just because, like, if you make this signing, I hope people realize, like, firstly, Mbappe, all of Europe wanted him. If we get Haaland, it is because it is in spite of like the rest of Europe trying to stop us. Nobody in Europe wants to see Haaland and Mbappe join Real Madrid. And people who thought we were done and dusted, or like teams around Europe, probably were not as afraid initially of us. I just know that next summer, they're terrified. They're terrified of that prospect. And there's a reason. It's because irrespective of how the front four looks next season or the year after, that front three is going to be pretty devastating for the next decade, right? And So for me, I think you make the signing even if you think the tactical fit's going to be dog shit, to be honest. Like, no matter how bad it looks, I think you have to sign Erling Haaland. He's that good a player. I love Benzema. He's old. Like, he's not going to be around for more than a couple of years, right? I'll just throw one tactical idea out there. 4-4-2, Benzema, Haaland up front. Mbappe, yes, he doesn't track back anymore at PSG. PSG is a basket case club. They don't know how to like manage their players. They don't know how to like control their players. They don't know how to get buy-in from their players. To be perfectly honest, I question if they don't even like eat food together. The players, like Ramos was surprised. It said that they don't eat together. So Mbappe, if you remember under Unai Emery, in big games especially, he was very much willing to tuck back in as a more defensive right mid. And this was, yes, when he was younger for sure. But I'm just saying, if we want to see our best shot at a tactical fit, it would be 4-4-2.
I don't think you can tell the best player on your team to play out of position in a position he doesn't want to play and give him extra defensive responsibilities. I just don't see it.
Who, Mbappe?
Yes.
Yeah, but you can't. So that you said that in the past too, Matt. But I don't see how you dislodge Vinicius from this position based on the season he's having. Like, I just don't see it.
But Sid just said right mid in a 4-4-2. Like, he's gonna have defensive responsibilities.
I meant off the ball. Like, I didn't mean like totally. Well, that's my point. I'm saying
He would provide better
it's not going to be
overloads
ideal.
than Mendy. Like, if you just give him the left back role.
I will say that the 4-4-2 is like the only way I see it working, and maybe with some like that, that's the one I'll think about. That's one I'll really think about because that's the only way I see it happening, and maybe with some really clever like differentiations between on ball versus off ball roles, it could work. I will say though, I don't think the logic that you sign him, regardless of whatever the thinking and plan is, like I don't agree with that. Like, there has to be a plan. Like, I'm really clear about the idea that if you're going to say no, you have to consider every single option. But if you're going to say yes, I think you 100% need to have the idea completely laid out. Otherwise, it can go south, somewhat similar to the way it's going with PSG, right? Like, you need to be ultra clear about how you're going to make these players work together. Otherwise, like, you're not getting what you want. Like, this idea of you just sign them and, who knows what, like, I don't agree with that because that's just a recipe for not making something that's really difficult to work to not make it work.
But if it goes south, like in PSG's case, they lose Mbappe and they're left with two washed guys. If it goes south for us, like the scapegoat is Benzema just because he's old. And that's not ideal for Benzema. But the reality is, like, I don't really see how 2 years of Benzema is worth more than a decade of Haaland.
And I don't know. You keep saying 2 years of Benzema. We don't know how long Benzema's going to last. Like, yes, most things would tell you maybe it's 2 years, but the way he's playing, the way he's aging, who knows? Maybe Benzema can still play at 37 the way he's playing right now. We don't know.
Wait, so Sid, how do you like Haaland, Mbappe, Vinicius as a front three?
It's not ideal, but it's very much like the Messi, Neymar, Suarez situation where if you have like 3 of the 4 or 5 best forwards in the world, probably at some point you're going to be devastating, and they're all young enough. I do think Mbappe is going to look really good playing as like a right-sided Ronaldo almost, where he can play further out wide and he's going to cut in aggressively. I think Vinicius takes care of the ball carrying for those two, and I just think I think those two complement Vinicius's on-ball game really well.
I think you have to like have a long conversation with Benzema about this because the Haaland thing makes this complicated. If Mbappe is really appealing for a variety of reasons. One, he's a freaking superstar. He's one of the best players in the world. He's been flirting with us for years and years. He's a Real Madrid fan. He's almost destined to play for us. The fans already love him. He's absolutely torched Barcelona over and over again. And the other benefit is that he has a synergy with Benzema at the national team level, which is actually quite beautiful to watch. When you watch the France national team play, and it took a while for them to get there because Benzema comes back after 5 years, and actually to me, like, he looked pretty good right away. But the synergy got better and better with them through the qualifiers in the Nations League. And Benzema and Mbappe have an understanding with each other. And that in itself is interesting because they primarily connect to the left side where Vinicius is. So again, you're going to have to think about how that will function next season. But to throw Haaland into the mix complicates this for obvious reasons. But on top of the obvious reasons, it's that if Benzema is going to be the one who's asked to take a backseat for Erling Haaland, who's a machine, part of the I think intrigue of having his friend Mbappe join is that he gets to connect with him in that Real Madrid team. And if you're bringing in Haaland, that really, really complicates how that would work. And I think Matt brings up a good point. Like we say 2 years with Benzema. Look, I'm pretty sure I said 2 years from Modric every year for the past like 6 years. I was like, yeah, he's like a year or two left. And then he's 36 now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, he has a year or two left. Imagine being like a young midfielder waking up every day and you're like next in line to take Modric's throne. And you just basically your career flashes by and Modric is like 45 and you're like, is it my turn yet? Kovacic, in a lot of ways, I'm happy for Kovacic that he left. He's just not going to crack through this Modric. And obviously the drop off, there's not really that drop off between Benzema and Haaland, if there even is one. I think it would almost be disrespectful to say that Haaland's inferior to Benzema. Haaland's amazing. I don't think he's inferior to anyone. But certainly Benzema is playing at such a high level that I don't know if he's going to decline, because if anything, he's gotten better since 2018. He looks better and better. So I just don't know how you juggle that. I think you have to have a conversation with Benzema, and be like, look, we have an opportunity to have these players in our team. How do you see this? Would you be willing to maybe rest more than you did in previous seasons? I don't know if this even works without Benzema's approval. And knowing Florentino, he's ruthless. He will move on from older players pretty ruthlessly. And if that means if it means missing out on Haaland, I think he would actually look for alternatives for Benzema. Maybe he goes fulfills his dream in Lyon in 2 years. I don't know, but it's one of those things that I think to me that Mbappe fit is not that challenging. I think you can make it work. He's also versatile. He can also play the 9 role if he needs to. The Haaland Benzema thing is what just complicates it for me.
Yeah, I'm starting to sort of like see where Sid is coming from. Like as a straight call between Haaland and Benzema. Like I do think Benzema is just one of those players who, the way his game is built, he's going to age very gracefully. But like he is 34 years old, and if it's a straight call between them, right, and that's the only thing standing in the way, I choose Haaland any day of the week. It's just if you're doing that, then, and we're no longer considering fitting all four of them together, then the question becomes to me, how much do I actually like that front three and the dynamic between them? And I have questions about it because I actually think of Benzema, Vinicius. Let's say it's between Benzema, Haaland, right? So Benzema with Vinicius and Mbappe, in my opinion, is actually better than Haaland with Vinicius and Mbappe, which I figure is a pretty controversial opinion. I don't know. No,
no, I agree. I agree. I think
I
that's
agree
clearly,
too.
yeah, so
yeah.
I think so. Right, I think that's better, and the reason I think is because it's all relational, right? I would say Haaland is probably like next season who's going to be the more valuable player. I'd probably say Haaland, but its value never occurs in isolation, right? It's a team game. It's what's your synergy with other players, and then what's your value when you take that into account. And Benzema is just his game is so wonderfully built, right, to release and work with players like Vinicius and Mbappe. So then let's say we are shoving Benzema out of the picture, right? And I'm not trying to gloss over how difficult, all the behind the stuff scenes will be, but you guys talked about that well. So let's say we take care of that. Then the question becomes to me, how good is that front three? And everything then depends on the midfield to me. And I think there is a way to make it work. It's just that someone else in that midfield needs to do a ton of work receiving in advanced areas, moving between the lines without being a vulnerability defensively at all, right? And Mbappe, I think, is underrated actually as a player receiving defeat and progressing forward, but that's not a primary part of his game. It's a really good secondary asset. We need someone who will carry a huge load that way because Haaland, at least at this point in time, is not going to do it. And as he projects, I think he'll be a capable passer, and as a secondary part of his game, we're already seeing him grow into it, but we need someone who can really shoulder a huge burden there. I don't know if we really have a central midfielder who does that. Actually, ironically, Odegaard would probably be the player you'd want to slot behind them and who would make it all work. So I think that's another thing we need to think about. If we design the midfield carefully enough, I'm starting to like see how the front three can work. Defensively, it will probably never be awesome, but I think we can get the right on-ball synergy. But I don't think we actually have a central midfielder in the squad who does that. So I think it would actually require another buy. So like that's how I'm seeing it. So Sid is convincing me to a certain extent, but I still have to think about a lot of this.
I'll just add a couple points that everyone touched on, just to follow through on them. Firstly, on Benzema, I agree that Bayern are facing the same problem that we are with Benzema, and that's why Bayern it's worse because Lewandowski's in Ballon d'Or contention. So for Bayern to even talk about Haaland is something he takes as disrespect. Like they actually have to come out. Like I think Oliver Kahn the other day, they asked him, he didn't have a choice. He had to say, why would we sign Haaland where you're going to keep Lewandowski? He's going to score 30, 40 for 3 more years. Listen, maybe in the Bundesliga he can, maybe Benz can continue in La Liga as well. But I would just defer. The only area I defer between, say, Benz and Modric is Modric has had more leeway to be more inconsistent in certain facets of his game because he still plays with Toni Kroos and he's still better than the backups. Benzema is like our key forward, and I just feel like for a striker he could drop off a little faster, especially because like maybe he's still good for a couple years, but I just think you'll need another scoring option if he's going to start dropping off. Like maybe Jovic is going to take up some of that burden, and when that happens, it's not like Modric where your intangibles that you've built over 15 years of scanning the pitch like stick with you in a way that it doesn't with youngsters. Like at some point, I just think a young striker is going to look better than Benzema faster than a young midfielder can look better than Modric. And yeah, it's just because Modric has that leeway of being able to go in and out of form just because we haven't found a better option. And, if we had, say, Joshua Kimmich on our team, Modric would not be like, I don't think we'd be talking about Modric the same way. And the only other thing I was going to say is, yeah, I would love to have a right back like Kimmich or someone on the team. I feel like we need another elite passer on the team or someone to make it work. But remember that Kroos, Casemiro, Modric worked with Bale, Benzema, Ronaldo. And like, at the stages of their career, they all played together when that midfield play was that front three. Ronaldo was much more of an off-ball mover, and Bale was fine. Bale could still drop back, but you could say Vinicius is better at carrying and receiving than Bale was at that point. And then you could say Haaland and Mbappe. My thing is, you can build around guys who run off the ball. It's much harder to build around a PSG front three where everyone wants to come to the ball.
So as we talk ourselves through this, I'm convinced more and more that it really comes down to Benzema versus Haaland in this discussion, and that's the fit that we're concerned about. In a lot of ways, it's kind of the Figo Beckham thing where we decide to sign Beckham for reasons that have been discussed to death, but he is a right winger. Valdano came up with this bullshit quote where he says Beckham's been wasted on the right wing his whole career. We need to play him in the center mid. Made no sense to justify it that way. We all know that he was lying and it was a puppet and Florentino and the board wanted him for different reasons. The problem was Luis Figo was on the right wing. So now you're in a situation where it would have made way more sense to just sell Figo on the spot because he was about to head into his decline anyway if he hadn't already started it. But then you keep both and you put Beckham in center mid, Figo on the right wing. None of it is adding up. It's a disaster. I think if you sign Haaland and your expectation is that you need to start Benzema also and Vinicius and Mbappe, someone's going to play out of position, and it's probably going to be Benzema dropping into a deeper role, into a 10 role or something. And I would definitely worry about that tactically. And I really think it matters how we treat Benzema in this situation for a variety of reasons. One, it's like we haven't had the greatest reputation with dealing with our legends, which I think in some ways it's overblown because I think if you go back and look at a case-to-case basis, you'll find that there's been in a lot of those situations that the legend probably could have done a little bit more. The most recent one is Ramos, who waited way too long to ink his deal, and then the deal was off the table. But with Benzema, given the fact that he has more left in the tank, if you basically decide to say, okay, we can have a couple more years of Benzema at a pretty top level, but we need to sign Haaland now, or we miss out on him for the next 10 years. And if we sign him, we have to kind of part ways with Benzema. I think that not only sends a weird message to Benzema and just in general to future people who want to sign with Real Madrid and how we might end their careers with the club. It also sends a weird message to Mbappe in the sense that I think he's really excited to come play with Benzema at Real Madrid. Those two just destroy teams together at the French national teams, and they're genuine friends. I feel like that's a really tricky thing to juggle, and that's, I think, more so than the financial stuff. That part of it might be a bigger barrier than anything in signing Haaland. That's how I feel.
This is your cat. This is the captain of the team, pretty much right now. I know
Yeah.
Marcelo's officially the captain, but Benzema is really the guy wearing the armband game in and game out. He's unlike other legends, Kim, that you mentioned. Like we've had trouble sending off legends, but this is a guy who's still at the top of his game. Like he's scoring 40, 50 goals a season or contributing to 50 goals a season. Like this is not like a declining legend that we're trying to get off our books, or Raul at the end of his career with Real Madrid. This is a completely different scenario. And to your point, he's got a bromance with Mbappe. He's going to want to play in the new Santiago Bernabeu. He's earned the right to do that. He's a striker that probably fits better at this point in time with Mbappe and Vinicius in terms of his playing style and being a facilitator. Like I just don't think it's as I agree with all of you that it's in either Haaland or Benzema question, but I don't think it's so easy to just say, "Oh, Benzema will agree to leave and we can accept." And this is also a guy who's never asked for a penny more. Like renewals have never been an issue with him. He's always been like faithful to Real Madrid. I don't see how you can force this guy out. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't think it'll come down to forcing him out. Only thing is, I really hope, because the question really is, do you see these reports about Haaland as true? Like the idea that he wants to join Real, then Barca, then the Premier League? Because really finding a landing spot for him is really hard. And obviously the best case scenario for us is if we have a season, if he chooses to stay at Dortmund for one more year. That probably is the best case scenario for us.
Am I seeing this correctly that we've been talking for 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
you
know
are.
how that happened. And it's funny because I went into this with zero plan. I was like, we're just going to talk for a little bit and we'll just see. I'll throw some random questions at them and see what happens. I guess we have 4 notorious just mic
Yeah, you put
hoggers.
all 4 of us together, and you're surprised you went 2 hours without a
This
plan.
is-
too,
this
right?
is-
So no agenda.
This is a worse tactical fit, the 4 of us, than
All way too
ball
speaker
dominant.
dominant. There's no portable co-star like Grant Little on. Yeah, it's awful. Wait, who's Benzema? Who's Mbappe? Who's Haaland? Who's Vinicius in this? I'm Vinicius.
that would prolong it another 2 hours. I don't
Keon
think we
Benz
should get into that.
Keon is Benz because he's busy trying to host this thing and make everyone fit. Maybe Ohm's the selfish Mbappe, always trying to get on the ball.
What's going on? All right, I just wanted to sneak this one thing in, because I feel like there's some ulterior motives here with Matt Wiltsey. Like, surely what he's really worried about is what happens to Luka Jovic's position, right?
I actually forgot, Matt.
No, I could
I'm
care
sorry.
less. Honestly, if we sign Haaland,
Oh, he'll cope. I mean, I learned to cope with losing Marcos Llorente, Martin Odegaard.
Yeah, exactly.
Life goes on. It goes on, man. Well, look, I think we should wrap it here. Shout out to Ben Hayward who logged on towards the end here. Hope you're well, my brother. Stay safe. Miss you. I hope you got some followers from this. The reason came on is I invited him, and Om's like, yeah, last time I did this, I got some followers. So yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So,
sure. That's why. That's why.
Go follow him. If you join late, just know that we're uploading this entire segment on the Managing Madrid podcast feed. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can go on Managing Madrid, search Managing Madrid on your podcast apps, Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever, and you will find us there. It'll be uploaded later tonight. I assume. I don't know. I think this is being recorded, and I think it's easy to do. So hopefully it is, and we can do that. Matt, thank you. Thank you. Sid, thank you. Thank you for everyone who's listening. I know a lot of you guys were here from the very beginning and stayed throughout. We actually had attendance increase towards, basically as the more we did this. I think the users in India, Middle East, Asia, they're waking up now. So I think we could have probably timed it better for them. Maybe next time we'll think about that. But it is what it is. The world goes on. We're all in different time zones, and we try to make it work the best we can. So yeah, thanks guys, appreciate it. This was a fun experiment. I think we'll do it again. I don't see why we wouldn't. It's pretty fun. Thanks guys. Any final words?
Yeah, just enjoyed it. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'd love to do this again.
Beautiful.
Yeah, my final words are: everyone who complains that we don't disagree enough, there are plenty of disagreements on this podcast, so enjoy.
Enjoy the disagreements. Take care. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great one.